and other things like that. But the members, in their individual capacity, they can participate in the political process. If there are any who feel the call to join politics, and no one will stop them as long as they don't break some biblical principle. And we are advised through the spirit of prophecy that if one feels that call and they really want to participate in politics, it's better for them not to participate in it representing a certain party, but they can do it maybe as
come out to be an outstanding guy. Everybody's talking about him because of the values that he has brought with him. First he is an IT guy, then they moved him to education. Recently in Tanzania we had a new government, and I look at that government. It came in when we had so much corruption going on. And the new government tries to deal with that. They brought in people who never ran for political parties. And quite a number of them, I could say maybe a third, are from the churches that I know. Some are children of our workers. Now, when I was reading Ellen G. White's writing, I thought she was very heavy on teachers and preachers. She said, those of us who are teaching our students, we should not go and start being in politics. I think we should impart values enough so that if our members are given a chance to work among this corrupt world, and I don't believe that it is only in Africa. We have seen what has gone on during the election in the US recently and other places. When you talk about Rwanda, we can compare with what happened also in the Eastern Europe, Middle Europe, where so many, had a problem. I don't know whether Adventists in those countries, that's divided, countries that used to be Yugoslavia, now you have two parts. After bitter fighting, if we had Adventists there and somebody did the research, I don't know whether we'll find that they were neutral. I think what is being talked about here is staying the cause of being an Adventist. When you are given a chance to work right there in the government, do you have values? Do you have something to bring in so that we can have a better world? So with me, I would say yes. I don't see any problem with a good Adventist who didn't run for political party. If he has been given a chance, it should bring as much value, it should make a difference.
Okay, sounds like there is a yes, but no. Maybe let me put it in this context now. From our panelists, where would you put somebody like Daniel or Joseph or Esther, who are our heroes? Would you call them politically engaged or not? Joseph, Daniel, Esther, would you call them politically engaged people or not?
Okay, I think we raised that question early, like what does political engagement mean? It can mean in different ways to different people. But for me, political engagement can mean like casting my vote, participating in government programs, and it can also mean like running for an office, being elected in an office, and then assuming your role in whatever office you are elected in. To me, this political engagement. Now, you may ask, what has been my political engagement? I must confess, not much. I would like to confess that in the past, I was not really serious about casting my vote. You know why? Because like you have a list of like how many senators I needed to vote. I didn't even know these people, and also I didn't take time. I could have taken time. But very recently, it was only very recently that I realized how serious business this is. That I should care for my country. And I realized, that part of my failure as a teacher was I was not teaching patriotism to my students. I was teaching them to prepare to be good citizens for heaven, but I was not intentional in teaching them how to become, good citizens on earth, specifically as citizens of my country. And so I realized that. And I got very serious in the recent election that, for the first time, my husband and I were hearing ourselves really praying in our private prayer, And after the prayer, I would say like, so this is really something serious. That was the first time. And when I sat down to cast my vote, I was really so serious. I cried when I prayed, I was so touched. Like, oh Lord, please help me to really make a good choice. But to me, this is it, because we are in this country. We are still here on earth. Sometimes we are here but not here. I don't think we should behave like that. We should be good citizens involved, in positive ways. So for me, I would say like, I'm a worker, and definitely my view is I should not run for an office. Maybe when I retire, I'll try running as president of my country. But not now. But I can involve in some ways, and this is only, I'm beginning just to explore, I would say. And that has started, with my thinking seriously of my duties as citizen of my country.
Yes, Dr. Icon.
Thank you very much. I resonate with what you say, and I appreciate we need to be both citizens of heaven primarily, but not neglect that we're also citizens here in various countries. To answer your question, are Daniel and Joseph and all of these politically engaged? Absolutely. And not just these. Look at Joseph of Arimathea. He just walks right into Pilate's house. Who can walk into Pilate's house? Not even the high priest did that. So he is a very politically engaged person. Nicodemus. We have a whole list of people. Of course, we have a whole bunch of kings in the Old Testament that were politically engaged. Some better, some not so good. And I think the names that you named are also symptomatic of this. Did they enter for good or for bad reasons? Were they ethical or were they not ethical? And to me, Daniel and Esther are two wonderful examples of how God used people, but from very different starting points. I would not advise my daughter to do what Esther did. To become politically engaged. Nor would I advise any other woman or man to do. She moved, we usually tell the children's story, we don't tell the adult version of the story. So, yes, let's leave it censored there. But we would have to say she started on a wrong path, and yet God could use her nonetheless. The miracle of the story is that God uses even people like Esther, who was not worshipping on Sabbath, who was not eating the right foods like Daniel did, who was in hiding with her faith. Nobody knew that she was a Jew. How can that be? She was not a faithfully practicing Jew, that's for sure. So here God uses somebody that we have written off of our books. This is not an active church member. So God uses even people in high places that we would say don't fit our ethical standards. That doesn't mean our standards are wrong, it's just that God can still use people in all kinds of places. By the way, the most amazing visions of the Old Testament were given to pagan kings. Daniel 2 is a vision to Nebuchadnezzar. It's not a vision to Daniel. Daniel chapter 7 and 8, those are given to Daniel. But the king receives this vision. God speaks to the king. And God speaks to the Pharaoh in Joseph's time. So these engage in politics, and many, many more. Isaiah is a royal officer who becomes a prophet. He's a top official. He has access to the government. He writes in incredibly precise and exact language. God uses people in all kinds of places. So, yes, people are politically engaged. And it's important to realize that. Yet, the important part is, what about our ethics when we are in those places? That is the important point. And I think Dr. Chengo has already pointed that out. That's what we need to work on. I think the reason, I appreciate you pointing that out, that we don't talk much about politics, we don't have a real statement, and we don't really address it very often. I'm very happy that you address it here, is that we are a church in the minority. And we always see ourselves as a small group. In many places of the world, though, for example, Jamaica and other places, we are actually quite influential. And we have people in the high place of government there, or in the Pacific Islands and other places where we have high percentage. And for us, it's difficult to switch from a minority religion to a majority religion. And that challenges us ethically, individually, and as a church. How do we deal with this new position that we have? We could now legislate Sabbath for everybody in the country. Is that the right thing to do? How do we combine our faith and the welfare of all people, even people that live different lives than we would say are laudable and good lives? How do we deal with the drug dealers? How do we deal with homosexuality? How do we deal with these things that are typically something that we have strong feelings about? And yet, if you're in government, you're responsible for everything. I wish we would know more about how Daniel treated all of the people. But apparently he did a good job to stick around for multiple different countries that took over. He did something that even the next generation that killed all the previous would say, well, we're going to keep that. Joseph prepared a pagan country for a natural disaster by and through the help of God. So how do you deal and how do you go about even doing good to people that are outright pagan, idolatry, worshiping, lifestyle, XYZ, living people? That is the challenge. And sometimes we haven't switched from a minority religion to a majority religion and all the implications, the ethical problems that has.
Thank you. We're getting really, really deep here. Yes, Dr. Christian, then you can ask the next question.
I can add to the list Nehemiah.
Nehemiah, yes.
But I can add to the list some names that you may not like. David, Solomon, and all the other kings in Israel. Is this politics? Is God's people supposed to get involved in this kind of politics? This is an aspect that we very rarely talk about. Was God really happy when his people started to ask for a king? So I do not want to get in this direction, but yes, there is a study to be done, some research to be done there. What I would like to point to is the fact that even biblical stories cannot be taken at face value, a literal reading, because today we are talking about involvement in politics in mostly democratic systems. But back in the Bible, please show me a democratic system. It was just a long list of we call tyrants or dictators or autocrats or whatever you want to call them. And still these people serve at their courts as high officials. We talk about Joseph, Daniel, and Nehemiah, and all the others. Today, we're talking about values. But again, we have differences between countries. If you go to the West, one of the highest values is equality. And yes, as a church, we would like to promote equality there, to fight for equality. And then we find ourselves in a difficult position when the church says, well, in terms of women's ordination, no equality. And the church in Western countries has a problem there because they cannot support a good value in society because they are faulting themselves. But we have other societies. And again, I'm coming back to Asia and Africa, where faith and honor are the highest values. How do you get involved in promoting or defending these values? Are these God's values? So probably the discussion should take place in a particular context to find out really are we on a good track if we get involved in politics.
Wow, that is interesting. I think are you learning something? Are you hearing?
Are you preparing questions?
Yeah. You know you are the politicians of tomorrow, or you are the leaders of tomorrow. What are you? Both. You know, as the panels talk, I remember recently when the president in the White House, when the chaplain preached, after the sermon, then the incoming president just asked, what are you, a Democrat? Or but he did not wait for him to answer the question. He told him, whatever you are hired again. What does that tell us? Is it his values or is it the way, he's sticking around from this one to this one, not necessarily that he's a Democrat or what. It is what he had done. I think it is what this man has been doing in the White House that is keeping him again there in the White House. And later I learned that the man is an Adventist. Then I say, wow, these values can take you somewhere. So our next question is, why is the Adventist Church involved with organizations like the United Nations or with other human rights things, or specifically the United Nations? Why is our church involved with such organizations?
I think that's not so hard to be at a table and discuss things, to share a viewpoint, to be engaged in dialogue, to give a perspective, to give an Adventist perspective, to represent some of the ideas that we stand for, which we already said, education, health, and preaching, evangelizing are three main cores, but we could add other things, development and relief. We have ADRA, of course, and others. To be at a table and talk to people, to be engaged with people at these conversations. You have to be part of the conversation. Being part of the conversation doesn't mean you agree with everything. Daniel was part of the conversations, but he didn't agree with everything, and he took a strong stand on some things, and he took a not so strong stance on other things. He decided that he was not going to accuse Nebuchadnezzar of the atrocities that he committed. The whole first chapter of Daniel is a wonderful example of how he says God allowed this to happen. He does not have ill feelings towards Nebuchadnezzar. He doesn't say, Nebuchadnezzar came, he raided our country, he killed our people, he waged war, he sieged the country. No, he writes, God gave Jerusalem, the temple, everything into the hands. So he decided to not have a negative view about Nebuchadnezzar. He said, God allowed this to happen. And yet he took a very strong issue on the issue of food. So you have to know where to put your foot down and where you can sit down and have conversations. And in a democratic society, this is where you can, or a democratic system, you can have a say-so You might not always be heard, and your will might not be voted up or down. That is up to the process. But you're there and you're engaging. And I think that's critically important, to be engaged and talking, to be involved. Involvement looks differently, but it's important to be involved. And of course we have representatives in various fields there, and we've spearheaded many positive initiatives. Just several years ago, a whole health initiative in Switzerland that we did in collaboration with the United Nations, where we put our Adventist values into practice for the whole world to see. Wonderful opportunities that give us recognition and then give us leverage sometimes when we need to take a stand and people say, well, these are also the people, they now want the Sabbath, but we don't want to give it, but these are also the people that did. And so we get goodwill, we do positive, we influence the world in a positive direction, and that's what we're called to do.
Firstly, I think we should ask, what is United Nations? What does it stand for? What are its agenda? And if we say that the agenda of the United Nations are aligned with the agenda of the church, and this is not only limited to United Nations, I think it is also to any other organization that promote the same agenda as the church's agenda. And here in our country now, we have lots of opportunities where our government has an agenda with which our church can align.
United Nations agencies like World Health, UNESCO, and quite a number of them are doing exactly what we'd like to see done. I know a number of people who have been chosen from countries as far as India, who are Adventists, and they've been chosen by their country as ambassador of peace, just to go around where there's problem trying to create peace. But to me, it goes back to values. The government are looking at this minority. Adventists in India are very, very few, compared to millions and millions in India. But yet they had a graduate of Spicer University as ambassador of peace. What have they seen? They've seen that we have something to offer. And we as a church, we have seen that there's some areas where we can align with, as Dr. Rosario just mentioned. And it gives us opportunity to extend the freedom and the space to preach the gospel. Because we need to do what we're supposed to do in as much as we can do it when we get the chance to do it. If it is going to be Sudan, then we need to go to Sudan. And if the United Nations is the venue to go to Sudan through ADRA and other agencies, then we'll go to Sudan. But if it's a problem in South America, or in Zambia or somewhere else, I think we should not shrink back unless we have forgotten the values that we need to share with the world.
Could I just add one comment and reflect on what Christian said earlier? Yes, in the Old Testament we had theocracy. God ruled the country. And the method or we had dictatorships and the pharaohs and all of that. And the way God chose various people like Joseph and Daniel and David and Saul was by singular election. He just basically handpicked them. He said, Joseph, you're now, after a life of service, there was no voting process, there was no running for office, you're in jail now and now you're right there. Or you're a slave and now you are. They played a part in being faithful in the process. Daniel in learning and in studies, which is a good model for us here, and Joseph in being faithful even in difficult situations. But the process wasn't running for election like we have today in mostly democratic countries. So the process might be different. But the end result is still the same. You still have to be ethical throughout if you want to be a servant of God even in these places. Joseph and Daniel had to go through that. You can be a servant of God and lose your way, like Saul did. You can be somebody who lost his way and finds it again, like Solomon. And you can be somebody like David that struggled back and forth the whole time, I guess it is. And yet was true to the heart of God. So the process might be different. The challenge to oneself is the important part. The challenge of being true to God's calling and ethical in how we go about it.
Thank you. I just want to say the reason why the church is engaged with these organizations like the United Nations, it's because we are not yet in heaven. We are still on earth, and Christ said we must be in the world and not of the world. So what changes when you become a Christian is not your address or where you live. It's not your profession, but it's your lifestyle. So all the other things remain constant except how you live. So you cannot say now we are a church, let's distance ourselves from what is happening in the world. If you become too sour, the world will spit you. If you become too sweet, it will swallow you. So there is need for us to have a balance and also to participate in some of these things which are happening in the world, because we are supposed to bring the influence of the kingdom of God into the kingdoms of this world. So we should not just engage on a higher level, like from the general conference, but even at the national level. Now, the leaders of the church must be known by the leaders of the state. They must actually be phoned and be asked of counsel, what can we do here? But you can only do that if you are constantly in touch. When you go to pray for them, when you go to give them counsel, and now when they do some bad things, you can easily now go there and say, no, we don't think this is right. And they can listen to you. So there is need for this engagement. And because we are supposed to reach everyone with the gospel. The gospel is not just for those who are maybe from the poor societies. It's supposed to be for everyone, the rich, the poor, the politician, whoever. That's why the church is supposed to be above party politics. Because if we are to align with one side, it means that we can't reach the other side. But we are supposed to reach all these people because they all have the same need. You may be of this party or the other party, but after your campaigns, after your meetings, you still go to the same bread shop to buy bread, because bread is what the people need for them to survive. So those are just maybe ways of articulating what we want, but what people want are generally the basic needs which they have.
I really appreciate what you were sharing, and I agree with you to 99%. I think there are exceptional cases where we need courage. Beyond what you said, we have as a church a policy of not engaging in politics, of staying outside of party politics. I really appreciate that you bring that up. And maybe it's not about party politics, but about issues. There are times when the church needs to speak. And we've not always been good about those times. We've sometimes retreated in extreme cases, and that's why I'm talking only of the 1%. And I take my country as an example. We did not have a problem aligning ourselves to the Nazis in Germany. We had their insignia stamped on our pamphlets because we got special benefits. The story of my country is that there was a woman, Holger Joost. She was very influential. She had very good ties to the top of Nazi leadership And she gave us, through her influence, she was able to give us freedom of keeping the Sabbath. Because of her, we weren't labeled as Jews, and therefore we weren't sent off to concentration camps as Adventists. But the price we had to pay was that all our literature evangelists had to hand out Nazi propaganda along with their own pamphlets.
Wow.
And we did, voluntarily. We also said, let's forget about the rule of not taking up arms. Let's take up arms on behalf of the Nazis. Because we need to keep our church members safe. If we are going to oppose the Nazis, they're going to kill us and put us into concentration. We didn't have the courage. There were other theologians that did have the courage, and many of you know them. Paul Barth. Paul Barth started the movement of the faithful church and opposed Hitler, had to flee, but he started a whole movement that exists to this day that opposed Nazi propaganda. The faithful, the remnant church, as they call the speaking church, so to translate. There were people that had the courage to stand up. Dietrich Bonhoeffer is another one who said, we cannot let atrocity just happen and close our eyes because we don't want to get involved in the politics. Let somebody else worry about that. If we don't do anything to what we know is happening, we are complicit in it. And so there are extreme cases. This is not the normal everyday thing about whether to build a highway here or 5 miles further down the road. But there are severe crises around the world on very important issues where we need to stand up as a church and publicly declare our solidarity with other people and clearly have the courage to speak out where evil is being done. I'm wondering if now that Russia has passed legislation against Jehovah's Witnesses, this would be the time for the Adventist church to speak up for religious freedom. And they have in some parts already. I'm sure we'll get a response as well. But this is a place where we stand opposed to a government, opposed to an issue, and we need to have the courage to do that. So there are a few times where we do need to get involved as a church in politics courageously, even in the face of death, because it's the right thing to do. And those are few times.
Well, this brings us to a very sensitive point. If you want to discuss this, then let's discuss it. More and more today we see leaders chosen in democratic systems who are actually dictators. And their values are different than our values. Why do we as a church react only when the church benefits are touched, religious freedom is touched, is affected? But when other people's rights are affected, we keep silent. Excuse me, but here in this country we have a problem. In the United States we have a problem. In many countries around the world we have as a church this problem. We keep silent when others are treated as they are not supposed to be treated. If we really have a mission and we join Christ in his mission to redeem, as I mentioned at the beginning, and to restore people, we have to speak for them and we keep silent. Is that involvement in politics? Yes. Are we going to be seen as opposing the establishment? Maybe. But if we keep silent, we actually give up on the mission that we have. So what do we do when we see people who are not guilty being killed? Do we keep silent? Then we join the Nazi times and history. Because when people are not treated according to how Christ would see people treated, then we have to speak out.
Which lands us to the very next question before the break, a musical break. In the strict sense of, should we or can we?
I think the problem is that so far you asked about the church, and now you're asking about individuals. And I think we need to keep those things very different and separate. So as a church, apolitical except as in extreme cases where we need the courage. As individuals, yes, we have our own opinions. And we have different values. And we share different ideas of what government should be about. As I stated at the beginning, what is government? What should it do? And depending on where you're from, you'll put different words in there. You mentioned order, and I appreciate that. Yes, order should be. But as a German, order means a very different thing, and I'm a bit uncomfortable with the word. So I would have a different definition, though I do respect that we all share different aspects of what government should be like. And at the end, we'll all want some form of order. But we have different views. How we go about expressing them, I think that's the question that you raised in terms of Facebook. And here we have big issues. But yes, of course, we should have our opinions, we should be engaged, and we should be informed and make our choices. How we engage with that and how we share that, I think that's a different question that maybe some others want to give it.
So let me add a little spice to it, you see. What I get therefore is the church is apolitical, but the members are not. Is that the picture? Now, I am a pastor, and I love the Democrats, for example. And then the Democratic candidate wins, and I post on my wall, yay, yay, yay. What about those people I want to win to Christ who are not Democrats? That's the one side of my question. How do I deal? Should I express it? Should I keep quiet? How does the mission come into play? That's all the complexity I saw behind the question.
I come from a country where 50% are Muslims, and 50%, a little bit below 50% are Christians. And we have some who are African traditional religion. And the Constitution says the government has no religion. So a Muslim, we have had one time we had a Catholic president, then we had a Muslim, then we had a Catholic, then we have another Protestant, and it has been like that, without planning. Now, I still think that this church has always encouraged the church, as an organization, to be apolitical. And the reason is good, the reasons you just mentioned. Because even your own church can be divided, and you'll be in a big trouble. That's why Ellen G. White very early said, when you are going to vote, don't drag the members to those that you are going to support. You keep your vote to yourself. But not to vote, or to tell your members not to vote, that one I wouldn't agree with. Because sometimes there are issues that if they are passed with 1 or 2 votes, they are very, very much against what the church would have loved to have there. And your vote, if you voted wisely, could really have saved the day. So to me, as a church, I think the church, even though we have not voted that in the General Conference, but the church had voted made resolutions at the General Conference area, if you check, that you can go and vote. Just make sure the way you vote, you are not dragging anybody with you. I think not voting and not being politically engaged, you can also be accused of sin of omission when something goes wrong.
I think the answer for me is simple. Do we know what value we have and we stand for? If we know, then we speak about those values. Not people, not parties. Whoever wins, yes, we will have to live in that regime. But do we know which values we are standing for?
I would like to add on that. Is it possible that others may be imposing their own values on others? Is it possible that you stand on your values and you as the leader, you are imposing your values on others? Because I was wondering, where do these politicians campaign? Do they campaign in our churches also?
I think that is something that we should be very careful about, that the church, specifically the pulpit, is not used as a venue for political campaign. When we say political campaign, I think we are very clear about that one, that nobody, whether the politician himself may not be a church member or maybe among ourselves, that we should not use and stand in the pulpit and then, promote a certain candidate or a certain political agenda, because the church has its own agenda and we should preserve that one. And in the recent experience here in the Philippines, when we had our election last year, I noticed that even on Sabbath, so the danger, is very real. Even on Sabbath, we were talking over potluck, over Sabbath lunch, Sabbath dinner, when we had our guests at home. We were not talking about spiritual things, even though there was a theological forum here, something. It's about, political topics we're talking about. And I think that is something that we should be very clear about, that while we have the right to vote, the right to engage in politics, we should somehow have a delineation when to say this one, where to say with whom. And Pastor Christian, you said you are a pastor. I think you have a responsibility.
Maybe I can piggyback on that. I think it's very difficult, and the nuances are multifold. Generally, in the elections that I come from, where you have multiple parties, either a two-party system or a multi-party system, there is no one party that you should agree with completely. So they all have their issues. You might feel that this is closer aligned with you, or there are specific values that you feel closely to, but generally no one party has the truth completely. To give you an example, my first senior pastor that I served with was a die-hard Republican in America. So I was a pastor in Colorado, and he was a member of the Republican Party. He met with the Republican leaders of the city on a weekly basis for a Republican breakfast. He was there every Thursday morning. He was very engaged. He never spoke about it in the pulpit. And he said, I will never. But personally, I'm very engaged. And then election time came. And I never asked him how he voted, but he told me how he voted. He said, I voted for a Democratic president. And I said, you as a Republican voted for it? This is unbelievable to me. He said, because we need balance of power. The House and the Senate are currently in the hands of Republicans. The system works best if people fight with each other, not when one party controls everything. When you have differences of opinions that get shared. And so he voted, even though he was so strongly Republican, he voted for a Democratic president. And I value that insight. That no one party is perfect, and therefore you cannot so closely align yourself to any political party that you say, this is my one and only. And that means the whole thing about gloating about victory, I don't think it's good on a soccer field. I scored the goal. No, there were 11 of you on the field. Why do you run on the grass and scream and yell and that you won and scored the goal? It started from the goalie. It was 11 of you, not one of you. If it would have been just you on the field against 11 others, you would have not scored anything. But we make it very much about ourselves because of our own pride, our own nationalism, our own victory. We align ourselves and we give ourselves away. This has deep, to me, ethical and Christian considerations. And I feel very bad when these things happen. Yes, I receive a whole lot from my Filipinos friends after the election and before the election, and from my American friends about and before. I think we should concentrate on issues. We can share our concerns. As church members especially, I'm fine with everybody sharing their opinion. As leaders, we have to be very careful that people understand when we're talking as an individual versus as a pastor. If people can distinguish that, then I'm fine with you promoting your views or saying, I'm happy that this happened. If you do that as a pastor among close friends that you know we're now sitting, playing a game or doing something, hiking up a mountain, and we're only friends. If that distinction is very clear, I'm now only talking not as a leader. Then we do all as pastors need compatriots and friends that journey through life with us, that share our sadnesses, our griefs, our joys, our concerns. But that distinction needs to be very clear, and I have found from my experience that it's usually only a very small circle that can distinguish between me as a leader and me as a person. In that small circle, you can share whatever you want to. Accountability partners, and we can talk about all these things. But in an official capacity, on Facebook, on social media, people will see you as a leader of a community. And you have to be so careful. It's better to say nothing. There's a German saying, speaking is silver, but being quiet is worth gold. And sometimes we need to stretch for that gold a bit more in our social media.
Okay. I like this other text in which says, and there arose a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. And I think from that wisdom, that's why the church cannot align with any political party. Because they can arise another Caesar who does not know Joseph. And then trouble can reign on the church. That's why the church as an entities are political. And if you are a pastor, you are the face of the church. So you have to be careful, because you are a pastor everywhere, whether in the light or in the dark, whether on Facebook or whatever. So you are leading the whole congregation. Some are Democrats, some are Republican. So you cannot express maybe that joy that my candidate is won. You have to be mature in that area. So the church as an entity cannot align with any Caesar, whether democratic or not. But the members of the church are the ones who, we cannot say they are political. They have political views. There is no neutrality in life. Even in the great controversy, there are two sides. There is no neutrality. So how can you have neutrality on these issues? It's not possible. There's no objectivity. It's either or, and never neither nor. You can't say I'm not there. There's no shilly-shally, there's no dilly-dally. There's no man's land. There's nothing like neutrality on politics.
The pastor has spoken as a true African. Because our politics there, there's no middle line. I think I'm challenged when I hear the questions like the one that Mother put forward. That the church members sometimes don't know what to stand for. that what the church stands for. That has nothing to do with whom you vote for. It is those values that made your senior pastor, even though he's a Republican, vote for another one because he knows exactly what our church stands for. That peace can be there if there's this and this and that. I think that we are challenged to teach more values. Our clergymen give us more values. Let's have no neutral area where me as a church member doesn't know what an Adventist stands for, especially when it comes to those questions that will divide us. So then after that, I'll make my decision. But there should not be a gray area because I'm not educated enough in what my church stands for.
Thank you. Any more comments?
But can I make, I really appreciate that because I think we often fail in that area, and that is values. We fail, and I see that in the post. And if you look at the evangelical community in North America, just to use an example of a recent election, they have aligned themselves basically with corporate interests. And some of their own pastors are saying, well, but did nobody teach you that Jesus worked among the poor? And that he said, blessed are the poor? Now you're just saying they're all lazy people and they have no right to live? And they should be expelled? Are you as Christians losing your focus of who Jesus is? And what has failed to happen is educating of values before an election happens. We wait till election to talk about these things and then it becomes political. And yet election cycles are usually, in most circumstances, predictable. Why do we not teach biblical values that affect politics in a long-range thing way before elections happen? Then when election time comes, I don't need to stand up and say, go this way or go that way. Listen to the values, hear what is being said. And what I've taught you for many years will now come to fruition. So maybe as a counsel to others, and as you go through that process.
Ellen White mentions that at the end of time, everything will go down. Even politics, even values. And she encourages us to get involved, if possible, to extend the time when the confusion will come and people will no longer know what to vote or who to vote for and so on. So in terms of political engagement, yes, if we can uphold our values as long as we can.
Thank you. We're going to take a break. There's a song. Okay.
Listen to all, whether it's church politics or politics outside or your engagement, listen. Listen to all the different sides. Very often there's some truth in different opinions. So this is for 90% of the cases. Listen. Number 2, compromise. Compromise where possible. There are many things that we can compromise on with people that see things differently. How you tie your shoelaces is not a matter of faith. Compromise where you can. Be courageous where you have to stand up. Be brave and courageous. And number 3, in all things, be compassionate.
Thank you.
For me, I would strongly encourage our church members to participate in programs that pertain to making a better community. And I would like to challenge even our women when you have the opportunity to participate and to support the government. And the reason for that, for doing that for me is there's only one reason, and that is to serve. That by serving these people, we become like a channel of blessing, because I believe this is what the church should be.
there to be an Esther or Daniel.
Know the mission of the church. Learn the values that you need to live by, and if possible, even have your own mission. Why are you there? And then your participation will make sense in the church.
I think we need to do the right thing and leave the consequences with God. That is what is needed. That's what needs to be done by us as members of the church. Just do the right thing. Don't think about, am I going to lose or gain or whatever. If we do the right thing and leave the consequences with God, we can change the world.
Thank you very much, Janet. We're done. I would like for you now to show your appreciation for all these panel members who took the time and who dared to be in the hot seat this year and to be a Daniel. Thank you very much, Dr. Aike, Dr. Arceli, Dr. Christian, Dr. Tiengo, and Dr. Zendi. Thank you very much. You may return to your seats and put your hands together for yourselves for your participation.